Okay, how many of you out there like promo cards? You know, those special limited printings that you can only get in certain places, and usually they have different artwork or, something special about them. Everyone likes to feel like they have something special. So today, we're going to go back and talk about promo cards, the very first ones. So, this goes back all the way to the first half of 1994. The game was pretty new. It had only come out less than a year before that. And Wizards of the Coast was growing the game at a fast pace. And they decided they were going to make some promotional cards that would be unlike any other cards that were in a regular set. So they were going to be unique cards. So one of the things they did, again in an attempt to promote the game, is they created a novel contract with Harper Prism Books. Sometimes it's called HarperCollins Publishing. So they were going to have Magic the Gathering novels. And, people would read the novels and become interested in the game and maybe play the game some more. It worked for Dungeons & Dragons. They had a whole novel line. And Wizards of the Coast wanted to kind of do the same thing. So to help sell the books, they decided that they were going to release a unique promotional card for each book. And in order to get the card, you had to buy the book and then mail away this coupon to get your free card. And that was the only way to get it. So, they figured that would help sell books. And they were right. It did. So Wizards of the Coast, got this going on. The books weren't out yet. They would just sign the contract and hired someone to write the books. And they also did some other promotional cards. Or at least, got them in the works. So the next one they were working on was Dragon Con. That's a big convention that's in the Atlanta area in the US. And they wanted a promotional card that was only for the attendees of Dragon Con. Of course, it was going to be a dragon. And the art was by Michael Whalen, which was a pretty well-known artist. He has some pretty good work. He was acclaimed, you could say. He was, popular, well-known. He'd won some awards for his artwork. So, Magic was kind of a new thing, and he was a big famous artist. So, they wanted to make that promo card, but they didn't have time to actually, print the cards, design them and print them, because the cards were all printed in Belgium. And they didn't have time to get that done before the convention started. So what they did instead was they printed postcards. And they decided to make 10,000 of them. So I guess the print run of the cards was going to be 10,000 cards. And they were going to hand out these postcards to people who wanted the card at the convention. And then you could mail in the postcard with your address and everything. And once the promotional cards were finished printing, then they would send them out to whoever sent in the postcards. So it made it work, It solved the problem of the time crunch. So on top of that, there was some more unique cards planned. Wizards of the Coast worked with Shadis Magazine. Now, you probably haven't heard of that magazine. It's not as well known as some of the later magazines like Duelist or Inquest or Scry. Those were, the big ones that lasted a while. But there was a couple earlier magazines that were smaller magazines. Shadis was one of them, and Cryptic was another one. Now, Cryptic actually was made by the same people as Scry. They kind of canceled doing Cryptic. It only had a few issues, and decided to make Scry, which was more focused on just collectible card games, and it was pretty much the first price guide. That's a little off topic, though. Let's go back to promo cards. So, Shadis was this magazine, and it was on issue 14 when they announced that Wizards of the Coast was going to have 2 unique promotional cards in issue number 15, the upcoming issue of Shadis magazine. And, word got out that this had been announced in the magazine, and the subscriptions just skyrocketed. The world needed these cards, and the only way to get them was to subscribe to this magazine so that you could get the next issue that had these cards. And so they got like 120,000 new subscriptions, or maybe that's not new subscriptions, maybe that includes their existing subscriptions, but it was a huge jump. They skyrocketed past the sales volume of any other gaming magazine at the time, because they were going to have this thing that no one else had. Okay, so that's where we were. No cards were actually made yet. Wizards of the Coast was just planning to make them. They were creating these sections, these places where they wanted to put unique cards, and these cards were going to be legal in the game. And so, July comes around, 1994, Dragon Con happens, and people get their postcards, and, word gets out. Everyone's talking about these unique cards, and a lot of people are kind of unhappy about them, actually. So, at the time, the supply of Magic cards was really low. Like, Wizards couldn't print enough to meet demand. And partially that was because demand was just blowing up. It was growing just huge, And so they couldn't guess enough months in advance how much to print. And so by the time it got printed and got delivered to the stores, it wasn't enough anymore. It may not have been enough to start with. They were having trouble with that. This was before Fallen Empires. So at the time, they called them speculators, but you might call them scalpers. Like, they would buy out packs and then sell them at a higher price. Or in some cases, it was not necessarily done with the intent to profit. Stores would buy packs at a higher price just so that they would have them to sell to the customers. And they had to get them from the secondary market at a higher cost because Wizards of the Coast was sold out. And that's one of the issues that you have with limited print runs. And all those old sets had fixed print runs, a single print run, and that's all you get. So Magic was having some supply issues back then. A lot of stores were rationing customers to just a couple packs at a time so that they could spread them out. And so prices tended to be kind of high. And amongst that availability problem, in come these unique promotional cards. And the player base just wasn't that happy about this idea. Everyone would love to have the cards, of course, but the issue was, how were they going to get them? I mean, take a look at the Dragon Con one, for example, which was like pretty much the one everyone was talking about because 10,000 of these postcards had just been distributed to people at the convention. And so you've got a whole world that's playing this game, Magic the Gathering, and this new card is only available to 10,000 people that were in Atlanta, USA for this weekend convention. So how is the rest of the world going to get this card? They're assuming that this is going to be a good card and that they're going to want to play with it. Not only how are they going to get one, but how are they going to get 4 copies? Because you could play up to 4 copies, right? So if there's 10,000 copies that were printed, there's only like 2,500 people that could have 4 copies. That's a really small number for a worldwide quantity. So the players were pretty upset. They thought this would affect game balance and that it would be an unfair advantage to the players that happened to be at the convention. Wizards of the Coast, listened to all this, and they understood. And basically they had to respond to all of their upset customers. And of course, in the early days, they were concerned about ruining the game. Like, they didn't want to turn people away from the game. They wanted to continue the growth of the game. It was still pretty new, and they wanted it to keep going. So Wizards of the Coast agreed at that point to not make any more new unique promotional cards. That just stopped. They were going to continue to make the ones for the books, and they were going to continue to make the Dragon Con promo card. Everyone had already had their postcards for it. They were excited to get it. But in the future, Wizards of the Coast promised that they would not make unique promotional cards anymore. Instead, they would do alternate artwork versions of cards that already existed, and then it wouldn't cause a game balance problem worldwide. Now, Wizards of the Coast did modify that agreement a little bit later on. They decided that they wouldn't make unique cards that were tournament legal. They did still make some unique promotional cards. If you think of things like the holiday promos, things that are distributed to major stores and Wizards of the Coast employees around the end of the year, things like that. Those are definitely unique promo cards, but they are not tournament legal. They're not made in high quantities, and they're certainly not distributed all over the world. And, well, yeah, you can't really play with them unless you're in a casual game. They're neat cards, but let's go back to the early cards. So the first promo cards. So another thing that Wizards agreed to do was that they said that to help distribute this Dragon Con promo card to a larger reach, around the world, so that more people could have access to it, they went ahead and agreed to print more and to include them in the Duelist number 3. Now, this was kind of a interesting strategy because Wizards of the Coast knew that the Shadis magazine subscription had just, vaulted up with the announcement of the inclusion of a promo card. And the Duelist, only being on issue number 3, was a pretty new magazine. Wizards of the Coast was hoping that they could also increase the number of subscribers for their new magazine by including this card. Hey, two birds with one stone. So they announced they were going to include this card in the magazine, and all you had to do to get one was subscribe. Well, that didn't quite work out exactly as they had planned. They didn't get as many subscribers for some reason. Who knows why? But it didn't jump up as much as the Shadis magazine announcement did. But back to the Shadis magazine announcement. Wizards, as part of their promise to not make more unique cards, they renegotiated this deal that they had, this agreement with Shadis for 2 unique promo cards. And so, unfortunately, that went away. Those cards hadn't been finished yet, and their printing was canceled. Who knows what they were, or if they had even gotten to the point where they were designed yet. Because you can agree to make cards without actually having the cards made. So yeah, those cards, that was canceled. So Shadis magazine number 15 came out, and 120,000 copies, and everyone's just bought it. They're expecting their new card, and what happens? So here's how that went. Wizards of the Coast agreed that instead of making a unique promo card for issue number 15, or 2 unique cards for issue 15, they would instead put in some preview cards starting with issue 16, and they agreed to do some preview cards in the future beyond that also. Okay, so let's slow down a second. So you might be wondering, what's the difference between a preview card or a promo card? Okay, so let's start with promo cards. Obviously, promo cards, we've been talking about them. They're special things that they have a special printing just for this card, and they are somehow visually unique so that you can tell them apart from the regular cards. They're special. Okay, so a preview card generally also has its own special print run, but not always. But a preview card is not supposed to be distinguishable from a regular print run card. It could even, in some cases, be part of the regular print run. So it's just a card. It's inserted in. It's still a promotional item, but it's not supposed to stand out as being special. It's supposed to be... the thing that makes it special is that you receive it before the set comes out. That's what makes it special. It's a preview of the set that's upcoming. But once that set is out, you can't tell it apart from the other cards. It sort of loses its specialness. So not quite as cool as an actual promo card, but still really exciting because it's something that no one else has yet. It's temporarily really exciting. Okay, so Wizards of the Coast agreed to put preview cards in issue 16 and some more beyond that. So what happens with issue 15? Well, right here. Legends booster packs. So, Shadows Magazine opened, 1,000 Legends booster packs. So that gives them, 15 cards per pack, 15 tradable game cards. That gives them 15,000 Legends cards. And they had 100 of those cards were actually signed by artists because they could do that. They had connections. And those 15,000 cards, including the 100 signed cards, were sort of randomly distributed one at a time into this 120,000 magazines. Now, you compare those numbers, 15,000 to 120,000, most people received nothing, which was disappointing, but it is what it is. But the people that received Legends cards, that's cool. Most of them were commons, of course. Some of them were rares, some of them were signed. It would be pretty cool to get a signed Legends card in your magazine subscription. I mean, that would be awesome. So that's what happened with Shadows Magazine. Okay, so next is September rolls around. So yeah, September rolls around and the Magic the Gathering novels come out. So here's one of them right here. This isn't the first one that came out. This is a later printing, but you get the idea. It's a book. Speaking of which, here's a note from the author. Clayton Emery. Greetings, I'm Clayton Emery. I wrote the second, third, and fourth Magic the Gathering Green Sleeves or Whispering Woods trilogy for Wizards of the Coast. By the way, when you see it spelled like that, W-O-T-C, that is actually pronounced WOTC. Within the company, they do call it that. For research, I was given a starter deck and some booster packs. This was pre-release before Magic the Gathering was announced. In fact, I got a call from the editor asking if I could hurry up with the first book because they're selling like crazy. So I thought that was pretty cool. It seemed like a fun thing to include here in this video. Okay, the book had in the back of it, it had this page that was a unique card offer. And so here's what that looks like. This is from a later book. This is not from the first book. I think this is from the fourth book is what this particular coupon is from, but they all looked pretty similar. I remember seeing them in bookstores. Back then I was looking at D&D books in the bookstore, and this was on the shelf next to the D&D novels. And I flipped through it and found the coupon, and that was kind of neat to read. I put the book back on the shelf and went about my day. But here's an example. This is what the coupon looks like, and if you read the fine print there, it says allow 8 to 10 weeks for delivery. So we still have no cards, no promo cards yet. We just have the Legends preview cards. Okay, October rolls around, and people who attended DragonCon are mailed their Nalathni Dragon promo cards. So here's one. Let me see if I can hold it still for you. Ooh. There we go. So, regular Magic back, just kind of like you'd expect of a Magic card. So yeah, Nalathni Dragon promo card. It's not all that great of a card, to be honest, but it's cool because it's the only promo card ever released at this point. So people are excited, and like the whole world wants one, and it's limited release to 10,000, and so you've got this thing, and everyone wants it. So it was cool to have. And then Duelist number 3 comes out. So here's what that looks like. Says number 3, fall of 1994, right here. And it comes with some inserts here for some other card games. There's Jyad. That's later became Vampire: The Eternal Struggle. They had to rename it there. And there's a frequently asked questions for Magic, rules questions. So those came with it. And if you turn to page 72, in case any of you are following along at home, let's see, where did they hide the page numbers on this thing? Here we go. All right. We have the artist announcement section. So over here, there we go. So this is where the card was stuck at. You might be able to see it in the light. You can see kind of this dark area, like right here in the middle, over this textless picture of the card. That dark area is a stain from the glue. Actually, I can still feel it, like the glue's still there. It's like, it feels like rubber cement, kind of. So that's where the card was stuck. They just stuck it on there with some, whatever that adhesive is. You know, the kind of stuff you stick things in magazines with. So it had a nice write-up, and it had a card, just one, and you know, people could get their card. Here's another one. This is a sealed copy, so I guess the card should still be in there. Half tempted to open it and show you guys. Yeah, so the cards that came in the Duelist magazine, they had that sticky stuff on the back, and it stained the card. There, I think you can see it right there. Now this card isn't from that magazine. I got them totally separate, but you can tell it's from a magazine because it's got the stain. Now the ones that were mailed to the DragonCon attendees, they do not have the stain. Let me see if I can get it there. There we go. Nice and clean. Yeah. Noticeable difference, huh? Now sometimes the stain's lighter in appearance. It's a little harder to notice. Depends on how well they cleaned off the glue or whatever. But it is pretty much always there if you look close enough. So, unstained, first print run, 10,000 copies. Stained, that's the larger unknown quantity additional printing to supply the rest of the world. Let me insert a video clip here that I took at MisprintCon, the first MisprintCon, that shows a close-up of one of these cards. Okay, so the Duelist issue number 3 here didn't sell as many copies as Shadis number 15. Wizards of the Coast was a bit disappointed by that, of course, and a lot of the fans were still complaining because they didn't have Nalathni Dragon promo cards. There was still this rumbling of ill content. So what Wizards of the Coast decided to do was that they had another product called the Duelist Companion, which is a separate, I don't know if magazine is the right word, maybe newsletter would be more appropriate, but whatever you want to call that product. It was issue number 4 of that, and it would include 3 copies in the next issue, in the Duelist Companion number 4. It would have 3 copies of Nalathni Dragon. Now this was partially possible because they had so many left over after not selling as many issues as expected of number 3. So the idea there was that you could give them to your friends who weren't subscribed, and maybe that would spread them out a little. Now, I don't know how many people actually gave them to their friends. I suppose most people just kept them for themselves, but, you know, whatever. They sold them, other people bought them. It got more out into the world. So that topic seemed to die down a little bit after that. The next thing was Shadis number 16. So it came out, and it included a preview card for the Dark. Ooh, exciting. So this preview card was a single card from the Dark, just a random card, and it wasn't a special printing. Similar to the Legends preview card, it was just a bunch of sealed the Dark products that had been opened up, and they inserted a card into every magazine. Now the way they inserted the card this time was that they wrapped the single card in a silver foil cellophane, like a booster pack. So yeah, 1 card per pack, and this way you couldn't tell what card you were getting when you were buying the magazine on the newsstand. It was, you know, sealed in the bag with it or whatever. And interesting thing there is, I guess it was because there was only 1 card in the pack, they had a lot of problems with crimping. They would, you know, it's a kind of a misprint term here, they would accidentally, when they were sealing the foil pack, they would accidentally crimp the card in with the crimp. Now, not on all of them, definitely not on all of them, but definitely a larger number than normal received this crimp. And interestingly, it is a different crimp than a regular booster pack of the Dark. So you could identify which card is a preview card from the magazine if it's crimped with this particular crimp. And other than that, that's the only way to identify it, because it's just a regular print run, you know, card. It's regular of the Dark. And I happen to have a comparison photo of that, so we'll insert those here. There you go. Here is the sealed silver foil booster pack with 1 the Dark preview card inside of it, and this one happens to be a crimped one. You can tell that the crimped card is inside the pack still. And that's the artwork for the magazine right there behind it. And then on this other picture here, this is a regular booster pack of the Dark that I photoshopped in there next to the silver pack, so that you can see the difference in the crimp. So this is a nice comparison for any of you misprint collectors who are wondering where your crimp came from. I suppose it's worth mentioning here that some people value third-party crimps lower than what you would call a factory crimp. The idea is that the card in the silver wrapper here wasn't crimped by Cardamundi, it was crimped by the magazine company. And for people who really want to collect factory crimps, they might find this particular crimp less desirable. You might even get issues with people telling you that it's fake or something like that because it doesn't really look at all like a factory crimp. So that's just something to keep in mind. Personally, I think this is pretty cool because it's the only way to identify the card as a preview card from the magazine. So I would think that this particular one is even more special than a factory crimp. But, you know, each person selects what they want to collect. All right, 8 to 10 weeks after mailing in their coupons from the first novel, players start to get their unique promo cards from the novel. So these are called Harper Prism promo cards, named after the novel company there. So we have Arena, which is named after the novel itself. And we have Sewers of Estark. Next we have this paperwork from December. This is December 1994. This is Acclaim Comics. Now if we read the paper here, it says Acclaim Comics acquires exclusive rights to Magic the Gathering worldwide. That's just for comics, of course, not for printing cards. Kicks off new Armada Comics book line. December 7th, 1994. So yeah, in December, they announced that they were going to work together with Armada Comics to create some Magic the Gathering comic books. That's, you know, a little easier to read than a novel, a picture book. Maybe they would attract some more people, and that's really the whole idea, cross-marketing. They want to attract people to the game and sell as much as they can. Everyone wants to make money. So, as part of this promotion for the comic book, of course, they wanted to include some Magic cards in the comic books. So issue 1 and issue 2 of Armada Comics, Magic the Gathering comic book, we're going to include preview cards for 4th edition. Now that didn't work out like they planned in several different ways. So 4th edition had already been delayed by that point for a variety of things, and then it ended up that 4th edition was actually released before the comic book came out, so the preview card wasn't a preview anymore. And another thing that happened was that the copyright date on these preview cards that were inserted into the comic books was a 1994 date from when the contract was signed, instead of the 1995 date that ended up actually being printed on all the 4th edition cards. So it turned this, what was supposed to be a preview card, into a promo card, because now you can tell it apart from the regular print run. Wizards of the Coast was disappointed in this, but you know, players were kind of excited because they had another new neat thing that they could collect. So I'll show you pictures of those later, because they haven't been released yet at this point in the storyline. We're trying to do this in chronological order here. So at the moment, we have an announcement on paper in December of 1994 that these things are going to be made. So January of 1995 rolls around, and the next novel comes out, Whispering Woods, and that's the first one in the trilogy that was written by the author we had the note from earlier. So, of course, it took some time again to mail off for the card. You had to wait for it to get back to you several weeks. But the card was Windseeker Centaur. So there's one of those. Something else that happened in January was Wizards of the Coast created a new white mana symbol. So they totally updated it. I'll drop in a picture here. Yeah, so this is what they were working on in January. This is closer to the end of January, and what they were working on in addition to this was they were working on preview cards for the upcoming Ice Age set. Now the concern was that the new white mana symbol wasn't quite ready yet, and it was time to send the preview cards to the printer, like they had to, in order to make the deadline for all the magazine releases. So they had to use the old white mana symbol on the Ice Age preview cards. Now there was 2 white cards, and as a result, when the Ice Age set was released, the regular full set, Wizards of the Coast didn't want those 2 cards in the set to be different from the preview cards. So they used the old mana symbol on those 2 cards in the regular print run, just so that people wouldn't be able to tell the preview cards apart from the regular cards. That's something, huh? So if you're ever looking through your Ice Age cards and you notice that 2 white cards have different mana symbols than anything else in the set, now you know why. Alright, so February rolls around, the Shattered Chains novel comes out, and that is the Giant Badger promo card. There we go. I gotta get better at holding stuff up to the camera for you guys. I just usually use scans anyway. But I got it here, so I'll hold it up. Alright, so the Giant Badger came out. Something else to note here is that these promo cards, they were distributed by the book company, Harbor Prism. You can see it on the coupon. Their address is in New York, I think. So the coupons all went to New York, and the book company had the promo cards, and they would ship them out to the book customers. So how were the promo cards packaged? Like, they had to be delivered from the print facility to the book distributor. This is something that the general public never sees. And so I'm going to show you. Here's a nice picture. There we go. So the Giant Badger promo cards were delivered in sealed packs of 55 cards. It's packaged very similar to a deck of playing cards, which makes sense because Cardamundi makes playing cards. That's what they do. I mean, they print a little of everything, but they make a lot of playing cards. So these are in decks of 55 cards, which is the same way that playing cards come. I think they have 54 cards plus an advertisement card or something in playing cards. So this is just 55 Giant Badgers. And something else that tells us is that it's probably 110 card sheets. That's similar to the way playing cards are made also. So one sheet made 2 sealed packs of Giant Badgers. Now these sealed packs like this of 55 cards, a lot of times we call these bricks. I guess just because you can stack them, kind of like bricks. Now we assume that the previous promotional cards also came in packs of 55 cards. I think that makes sense. Pretty sure that's what happened. The next promo card for the next novel was also created in sealed bricks of 55 cards, but it hadn't been released yet. So the cards were printed, of course, before the book came out so that it could be shipped to the distributor and all that, logistics. So it was printed in bricks of 55 cards, but I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. So just know that was made in 55s. The Giant Badger was made in 55s, and we assume the stuff before that was also in 55s, which is normal for a playing card company to package things that way. Okay, so March 1995 rolls around, and the Ice Age preview cards come out in magazines all over the place. Shadis number 18 contains a Norrit and an Essence Flare. Comic Buyer's Guide number 1116 contains a Norrit and a Word of Undoing. Non-Sport Update Volume 6 number 2 contains a Norrit and a Gaze of Pain. Scry magazine contains a Norrit and a Dire Wolves. Then in April 1995, Cards Illustrated number 18 contains a Norit and a Filgja. Combo number 4 contains Norit and a Scaled Worm. I like Scaled Worm. Hero Illustrated number 23 contains a Norit and a Gorilla Pack. Wizard Magazine number 45 contains Norit and a Prismatic Ward. The Duelist number 5 contains Norit and Aurochs. In addition to that, the Norit card itself came sealed in bricks of 50 cards. That's different from 55. I don't know why they changed. Maybe they switched to 100 card sheets for some reason. I'm not sure. But Norit came in sealed bricks of 50 cards, and those bricks were distributed to game stores all over the place. And they were supposed to be handed out one card at a time for free to anyone that walked in the door who was interested in having one. This was to get local game stores to encourage their customers to play Magic or to try the game. Wizards was marketing really heavy for Ice Age, as you can see, to have all these different magazines releasing preview cards and also be handing them out for free at game stores. Now, some of these sealed bricks of 50 did survive, just because there was so many of them out there and they were in the hands of so many different people, unlike the other promo cards, which were all at the book distributor. So here's a quick video of a brick of 50 sealed Norits, another pretty rare thing to see these days.
I get it. I didn't really respond. Maybe it was actually more there is an all of the scary border island. They have a whole stack. Mixed primarily a lot of playables. It's fries with
All right, I also filmed that at the first Misprint Con, and that was an item that was owned by the vendor who was there for the con. We had a special misprint vendor, pretty awesome guy. So let's see, next we're in April, so Final Sacrifice, the novel, comes out. And that is the novel that has the coupon for Mana Crypt. That's the big money promo card here. That's a good card. Okay, so Mana Crypt, as we mentioned earlier, was originally in 55 card bricks. Now later, it was printed in 50 card bricks. So this change to 50 card bricks did affect the Mana Crypt card. It was available in both sizes. In addition to being distributed from those novels for the coupons, it was also distributed, or perhaps more were printed, for the Wizards of the Coast to give away as tournament prizes and things like that. They had some of these in their game center when they eventually developed a game center, which was a bit later. But they owned their own retail stores called game centers. And so these were prizes in those places. Sometimes they would even give away like a full brick of them. So here's some more pictures. Then in May 1995, Pyramid Magazine number 13 contains Norit and Balduvian Barbarians. Finally, the comic books come out, the ones we talked about, back in December of 94 with the paperwork. So the comic books finally come out in July, the first one. The first comic book comes out, and it has a fireball. And this fireball looks a lot like a 4th edition card, but instead of a 1995 copyright date, it has a 1994 copyright date. Okay, here's a picture of that Armada Comics promo card. This is the fireball. And down here where the copyright date is, we can zoom in and look at it here. You see it has a 1994 copyright date. Alright, zooming back out. Now, it's important not to mix this card up with a set called Edgar, which is also known as Summer Magic. That's a different 1994 copyright date. Not at all the same thing or on the same price level. Edgar/Summer Magic is very expensive. And this promo card is not so much. Now that Fireball was in a comic called Shadow Mage #1. Also in July, there was a comic book called Ice Age #1, which was a different series of comic books by the same publisher. Ice Age #1 contained the preview card Bone Shaman. The next month, in August 1995, the next comic book issue comes out with Blue Elemental Blast. Similar to the Fireball, it looks a lot like a 4th edition card, but it has that 1994 copyright date. And again, you don't want to mix it up with Summer Magic. That Blue Elemental Blast was in the comic book Shadow Mage #2. Also, the same month, Ice Age #2 came out, and that comic book included the preview card Chubtoad. Around that same time, Wizards of the Coast started a promotional tour called the Caravan Tour. That was when Wizards of the Coast employees that worked on Magic the Gathering, and also some of the artists that did artwork for Magic the Gathering, traveled around together to local game stores and promoted the game. They held events in the store, they met people in person. Sounds pretty cool. During that Caravan Tour, they gave out oversized Hurlin Minotaurs and oversized Sarah Angels with the original Doug Schuler artwork. Anson Maddox for the Minotaur. They're 6x9 cards, and it was the first oversized cards. So 6x9 means 6 inches by 9 inches. For those of you, not using the inch system, you can do the math. 2.54 centimeters is 1 inch. Now, they weren't exactly 6 inches by 9 inches. They're actually something by 8 3/4 inches, but close enough. We call them 6x9s. So, yeah, that was the introduction of the first oversized cards. Now, on the back, they say not for play use. But some people have, later when enough cards were released, some people have actually put together oversized decks to play with for fun, which is pretty cool. Okay, so those 2 cards were the next promo cards, the first oversized cards. After that, in December, we have the Duelist #8, which includes a variety of these preview cards from Ice Age, and Wizards of the Coast was basically just trying to use up all the leftovers. I think it didn't include any Filges, because they had apparently used all of those, but it had a little bit of everything else, not necessarily consistent in every package. I think it was like 20 cards or something. It was a stack, But so they used up the rest of the preview cards there and just handed them out to fans because, it costs to keep them in storage. So, you don't want to just pay for them forever. Get them to the people who want them. Let them do their job. Okay, the next thing after that is the DCI Legends membership. So, I'm not sure exactly when that happened, but it included a promotional counterspell with unique artwork. That card has a 1995 copyright date, so that's what makes me think it's right around the end of 95 is when this was created. And it also includes a promotional Incinerate with unique artwork. Those cards are printed on the same sheet as some later promos which were released in 96. So I'm thinking it must have been pretty late in 95 when this Legends membership thing happened. I might have to look that up. So there were a variety of other things that you got with your Legends level DCI membership if you wanted to pay for your DCI membership. I think you got a subscription to Duelist or something. You got a deck of playing cards. I think a phone card. A variety of little odds and ends. Along with, of course, your DCI number. Very important. Because these caravan tours were basically being replaced with organized play. So they were going to promote the game. Instead of spending their money paying for people to go around and travel and see people in person, they were going to spend their money, I guess, with prize support and things like that. which makes sense because they obviously buy it at manufacturer's cost or wholesale, and they get more value out of it when it's given away as a prize at a retail value. So the money went farther that way, and the fans liked it because they got stuff, and it encouraged people to play the game, which was good for business. That was really a good decision all the way around. Unfortunately, the caravan tours, had to stop at some point, but they did what they had to do. So the next thing after that would be February 1996. There was a Homelands comic book, and inside that comic book you got one, I'm not sure if it should actually be called a preview card, because this would be after Homelands was released, but it was a Homelands card, and it was meant to promote the Homelands set, but it was identical to the cards that are in the Homelands set, so it's not, easily identifiable, even though it had its own separate print run just to supply these comic books. So even though you only got one card in the comic book, there were 3 possible cards that you could get. Now, I assume they were all printed equally, that you had equal chance of getting any of them. I don't actually know. Maybe one of them could be more rare. Who knows? So the 3 cards were Apocalypse Chime, which that's pretty cool. That destroys all cards in Homelands. Powerful card to be given out, right? Just in case anyone happens to be playing Homelands. Baron Singer, also a really cool card. Be nice if they made him a Planeswalker someday or something. Hint, hint. Okay, and Faraz's Ban. So those are all, pivotal, important cards in the Homeland set. March 1996 rolls around, and there is a comic book called The Legend of Jedit Ojinin. I'm probably slaughtering that name. So that comic book included a copy of the Chronicles card Johann. Now, I really like the artwork on this card. It was one of the earlier cards that I had in my collection, and the artwork just spoke to me. I don't know what it was, but unfortunately it's not a very good card. I wasn't able to play with it as much as I would have liked. I definitely tried to play with it, but it didn't work out so well, and I had to take it out of my deck because it just wasn't a good card for what I was trying to do. But love the artwork. Okay, the next thing. Keep going through these promo cards. So April 1996, Inquest number 12 had an oversized Chaos Orb. This is 6x9, the same size as the previous Hurlin Minotaur and Sarah Angel, but this one was a Chaos Orb, which was pretty awesome. Now, Inquest was obviously at issue 12 by this point because it came in issue 12. We hadn't mentioned the Inquest magazine previously, but so it's here, it exists. So the reason the giant Chaos Orb is so big is because if you haven't read Chaos Orb, here's what it does. You can flip it from a height of, I think it's 12 inches or something, and it has to flip all the way over at least once. That's a 360, not 180. And whatever it lands on gets destroyed. So obviously having a larger Chaos Orb is awesome because you hit more things, right? Unfortunately, it said not for play use on the back. But, if you're playing with one of those fun decks made out of oversized cards, then maybe they'll let you get away with it. As long as it's not in a sanctioned tournament. Okay. So, May 1996, the Fallen Angel comic book comes out, and it includes, obviously, a Fallen Angel card from Chronicles as the promotional insert for the comic book. In July 1996, Scry number 15 includes an oversized Black Lotus, always a popular card. Personally, I like to scry myself. That's what we used for the price guides when I was getting into the game. June 1996, there was a Dakon Blackblade comic book. And of course, it included a Dakon Blackblade card from Chronicles. It was a pretty popular card. Dakon Blackblade and Chromium were the popular cards around that time frame for Chronicles. August 1996 rolls around. There is a Sarah Angel comic book, and it includes a Sarah Angel oversized card, but it's different from the previous released Sarah Angel oversized card. Now the difference is the artist. So this new one in the comic book has art by Rebecca Guay, and it's pretty cool artwork. She's a great artist, really. It's a pretty high value card these days because not many issues of this comic book were printed relative to the other issues. Low print run, high demand, artist turns it into a more expensive item. At Origins, back on July 4th, Wizards of the Coast had announced the Arena League. This was meant to bridge the gap in between casual play and competitive play. You know, get more people interested in the game. That's always the goal. So, even though they announced it on July 4th, the first season of the Arena League started on August 2nd. So that gave them a little bit of time to sign up and, arrange things. Alright, so starting on August 2nd, the first season of the Arena League began, and participants received 1 of 5 promotional basic lands. In addition to that, in September, the person who was the best at their local play area, wherever the league was being held at, it could be a local game store, or maybe it's a meetup that's several towns where they're converging together. However it's arranged, each location that had an Arena League event, the best player at the end of the season, which was in September for the first one, received a promotional disenchant with special artwork, and the second best player received a promotional fireball. So that's how those all got distributed. Judges that helped with those events, they received a full uncut sheet, they call it a press sheet, of these cards. They did have magic backs printed on the back side, and it was a lot of lands because everyone got a land, and it was just a few disenchants and fireballs, and the sheet also included the 2 DCI promo cards, the Counterspell and the Incinerate. So those were also on this same sheet. They were just, printed and cut and separated for different purposes. Series of Arena League did continue past that first 1 month long series. Each it was called seasons, not series. Each season of the Arena League lasted about a month, and there was, I think, 6 seasons on into 97 before they switched to a different format a little bit. Overall, the Arena League has had a lot of different promos. I'm just going to mention these first ones here, but if I cover more promos in the future, probably going to start here with the Arena League and then reference people back to this video for the earlier stuff. Okay, so also in September, because we're in September now, the Arena League prizes have been awarded. They're out in the world, people have them. So also in September, another comic book comes out, and it is Urza Mishra War, issue number 1. And it has a promotional Soldevi Steam Beast or a Phyrexian War Beast. And these are Alliances cards. Now, Alliances also had multiple artworks of certain cards. Not all the cards like Fallen Empires. They didn't get that crazy. But several cards did have 2 artworks. The Soldevi Steam Beast has 2 versions, and the Phyrexian War Beast has 2 versions. Now, on both of these cards, one version has flavor text that is a quote of Arkham Dagson, and the other version of both of these cards has flavor text that is a quote of Soreen Relicbane. So, maybe you're wondering which one came in the comic book. Maybe that's why you're here. You want information. Alright, here we go. So, the Soldevi Steambeast with the Arkham Dagson flavor text and the Phyrexian Warbeast with the Soreen Relicbane flavor text are the two cards which you could possibly get in this Urza Mishra War comic book number 1. Now, you only got one card in this issue of the comic book, and it seems to have been one of those two cards. Maybe it's possible to have gotten some of the other cards, but I've never heard of that. That I'm aware of, it's just those two. Specifically the two versions that I mentioned. The following month, in October 1996, the next issue of Urza Mishra War came out. It's issue number 2. It's a 2-part series, so that's the end of it. This issue included 2 cards. It was also a Soldevi Steambeast and a Phyrexian Warbeast, and it was the other versions of those cards. So the ones that weren't possible to get in issue number 1, you could receive them in issue number 2, but you got both of them instead of one or the other. Now, some issues of this comic book, instead of having the other Phyrexian Warbeast, they have the same Phyrexian Warbeast that was available in the first comic. I'm not sure if they were just using up leftover supplies from the first comic, or exactly what was going on there. But, so you could get the Soldevi Steambeast with the Soreen Relicbane flavor text, and either version of the Phyrexian Warbeast. There wasn't anything more that was made that was just, unique, limited release like these first book cards and then the Lathni Dragon. So those 6 cards are the unique cards, unique promo cards, and after that Wizards of the Coast didn't do that anymore for game balance reasons and, well, to make the players happy. A company that did do that is Steve Jackson Games, who made Munchkin. Just, for comparison, Munchkin is a card game, and it has special, unique promos all over the place. You can do things like participate in an event and get a coin or a card or some kind of a token or even a box to contain your cards in can give you bonuses in the game. And sometimes you can pay money and mail off for these things, or sometimes you have to actually attend events. There's different ways to get them. In my experience, that makes the game kind of unbalanced. So if one player approaches the game and they have their deck box of plus 12 and their Duck of Doom token for another plus 5, or however it works, then it's not fair to the other players. It can really get out of hand, especially if you continuously do that over the course of a quarter century. Magic's been around a long time. So I think Magic made the right call to not make unique promo cards that are tournament legal. But you think about it. See what you think. Would you like it if you could do things like you can do in Munchkin with those unique promos? One more thing I want to mention before we go is this card right here. So this is a Crystal Vein. It's a Japanese Mirage. Yep. Okay, so this card was accidentally placed on the sheet twice. Oops. Now, what the sheet was supposed to have was a Crystal Vein and a floodplain. And what it actually had was 2 crystal veins. That's a problem. So in order for players to get a floodplain in Japan for Mirage, what they had to do was send in 2 crystal veins. It's called a redemption program. Wizards has had to do this several times. Whenever they make a mistake that's pretty big and they need to do something about it, they call it a redemption program. And in this instance, it was about fixing this mistake. So if you sent in 2 of these crystal veins, that proved that you had received 2, and they assumed that one of them was supposed to have been a floodplain. And then Wizards of the Coast would send you back a Japanese floodplain. I guess that was the only way to get it. You had to mail in for it. So, in addition to that, along with getting this floodplain, it was difficult to acquire, they also sent you a Japanese Nalathni dragon. That was sort of an apology for making a mistake. So, pretty cool card there. Magic back, as expected. So, there is a foreign, or rather a non-English, Nalathni dragon. Okay, that puts us around to October 1996. That is 2 years from when the Nalathni dragon was delivered to people who had attended DragonCon in 1994. So this covers promo cards from the beginning, which starts in 94 for promo cards, until 2 years in. I'm going to cut off the video here. It's plenty long enough. And as you can imagine, Magic continued to create promo cards on into the future. So if you all want to hear more about promo cards, feel free to ask. There's plenty more that came out after this. But mainly I wanted to talk about these first earlier ones, especially the ones that are lesser well known. Like a lot of these comic book inserts, the preview cards especially, they look pretty much identical to the regular release. And so people don't realize that these cards exist, and they exist in higher quantities than the rest of the cards in the set. And that can be relevant for a variety of reasons. Now, people are kind of aware of the Norits just because there was so many out there. They were like in bricks of 50. But the other cards, it tends to be forgotten by time, and I don't want that to happen. So here we are. I'm sharing the info with you. You can share it with other people or direct them to the video. Hopefully this helps someone in the future who's trying to complete their promo card collection. Catch you next time.